Hey, what's up guys? So today we're going to be showcasing off a very powerful deck that will be coming out very soon, and that has to do with the Endymions. Mixing it with the Zefras, you're going to be able to pull off some crazy negates. We're talking 7 cards negated, and that's insane. And what I like even more with the build is even if you happen to get stopped, you still happen to be able to negate like 4, maybe even 5 cards, even after opponent negates one of your plays. But anyways, that all really comes down to Endymion being really easy to summon in Zefras, because you can just throw out a lot of the Zefra cards. There's a Zefra card that searches out any Zefra card. When this is activated, you get to search out any Zefra monster, which obviously is going to be Zefranu, which it can search out any Zefra card in the first place. And that allows you to have really easy access to Endymion before any of the plays really even happen, which is insane because at this point, we have 7 negates on the board. Now, in this instance, yeah, we happen to have 3 copies of Zefra Divine Strike. But even if you're able to negate 5 cards, that's already game over anyways. Why would you need to negate 7? Well, if your opponent happens to have that Pot of Greed and you just let that go through, for, of course, the memes. But anyways, at this point, like, there's no winning. You're going to go ahead, after you negate with FA, you can go ahead and use the Shooting Riser Dragon, goes right into Crystal Wings Synchro Dragon, and then that's another negate. We have all of these negates right here. We have, of course, Endymion, which you're going to be able to summon. Usually, you try to get this card out before going for this combo, so if they happen to have any hand traps, you can get rid of them. But there's also a Zefra card that will prevent your stuff from being destroyed in the first place. And then, of course, your hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss to also have another negate, because that's what you got to do to win in Yu-Gi-Oh! Here we have a 6 negate. The opponent ends up playing some variant of Dark World Exodia. It doesn't really matter what your opponent is playing if you're negating every single card. I know sometimes people are like, well, it's not even versus meta. I mean, the only thing that's really saving you here is probably Winged Dragon or Raw Sphere Mode. That card is just so dang good. Oh, this is a Dark Factory, dude. Alright, so anyways, like I said, majority of the time, because there's a lot of cards in the whole Zefra archetype, there's also Pendulum Call, so that's another card where you're just able to get more spell counters. But Servant of Endymion is the main card that's going to, again, allow you to go for the easy access to Endymion. So if your opponent would, say, negate any of your steps in your combo, you can just go ahead and, again, just negate that. And you also have the Providence, which just lets you add another Zefra card. So there's a lot of cards that are just free extra cards for you to add extra spell counters on your Servant. And then Servant's going to go ahead and special summon herself, as well as getting out the Founding Sorcerer Supreme. And this is a negate, this is a negate, this is also a negate, and of course we have the Zefra Divine Strike, and this card will go into another card, which will then give you a negate. We're going to go ahead and Shooting Riser Dragon. He's going to be able to send a monster to the graveyard, so it acts like a little foolish there. And then you go ahead and make the Dragster. But at this point, his opponent's like, dude, I can't beat you. I mean, most decks will have to fold at some point. And I'm going to show you guys a few different plays versus a few different decks. I mean, this guy even had Super Poly here. I was hoping to see some memes out of this one. So let's go ahead and check it out. But yeah, like I said, most of the time, you try to go for this first. Okay, that's the key card that you want to be making. I'll also give you guys the deck profile in case any of you guys want to run the deck, courtesy of Young Spaghetti Roll. So shout out to you, man. This is a really nasty deck. I think that even if your opponent happened to have one hand trap, depending on when they negate it, and if you can get out this card first, obviously, well, you just go ahead and have that effect. Where? When a spell trap or card effect is activated, you just return a spell counter. If you do, you get to negate that card. Destroy it. Good stuff indeed. But, yeah, at this point, this guy's like, dude, I can't even win. Dude, I was really hoping to see him bust out some crazy card, but you also have 9 Pillars of the Yang Zing. I'm not sure how I feel about that card being necessary in the deck, because a lot of times Zefrano, you're going to go ahead and just use it as material. And this isn't even with Sarayuja, just checking out the deck over here. We also happen to have a few extra slots, so there's extra room if you guys want to actually play a few other things, which is kind of cool. I always like it when there's room to obviously improve on the deck. Dude, I haven't seen Dino Mists in a long time, but again, it's more so to showcase off this deck because we negate everything over here. So once again, going for the first turn, Endymion Founding Sorcerer, Spellcaster guy over here. I was even thinking that like maybe you'd be able to throw in Big Eye, because then you can snatch steal something, and then on top of that, if you happen to have the Zefra Field Spell card, which has the option over here to instantly get a bonus effect depending on what you're making. Most of the time you're going for a synchro in the deck. Wish I had a link effect because that would work quite well. But with an exceed, you get to draw a card and discard a card. If you synchro, you get to choose one monster from your deck and place it on the top of your deck, which can obviously work very well with a card like Glow Up Bulb. But at this point, he's just like, dude, I can't even play. Okay, so here's a smaller board that we're going to be making because, well, unfortunately, well, I guess I should say, fortunately, this card can only be used once. If you can get double effects of Zefra, you would just absolutely destroy, and it would probably break the game even harder than it already is. But once again, go for Glow Bulb, go for the Dragster. Providence going to go ahead and add the negate anything. So we have negate with this, we have negate with this, and then obviously this can go into Crystal Wing. So we're going to go ahead and make the Shooting Riser. I want to deck then with that effect. And then on top of that, we're going to go and make some Crystal Wing. Going to go ahead and be able to negate that as well. But Zefra Divine Strike, to negate anything, it's a searchable card. So pretty easy to pull off this stuff. And then every turn, just go ahead and keep on busting out this bad boy over here, because he's going to give you another negate. Basically, your opponent has to beat you within the first turn, because if this deck goes on and you constantly are going for Zefra, you're going to out-resource your opponent. Definitely, that's just how this deck works. Crusadia, unfortunately, they are more of a linear deck. They usually just try to go for their link monsters, and when they special summon the monsters pointing towards it, they'll get some type of bonus effect, but unfortunately, it's just not going to be looking too good. For most decks, they can't explode turn 1. Obviously, if your opponent makes a very difficult board turn 1, this deck could have a problem, but because there's a lot of options, and because Endymion basically forces out them to negate something, and you can negate the negate, if they have 2 negates, you can definitely still play this deck, but if they happen to have 4 negates, well, most decks at that point would fold. But anyways, for those of you guys that do want the deck profile, and if you have suggestions with this deck, let me know down below. I honestly feel like you could definitely throw in some Ash foreheads, or you could go for Called to negate even harder if you wanted to. But obviously it's a very combo-based deck, but there's a lot of times where I'm feeling like you don't need, let's say, for example, 9 Pillars is not a card that I would say is super required for the deck, but all these other searchable cards, you can definitely like cycle through your deck relatively quick. But if you want to make some suggestions, you guys can let me know down below in the comment section below what you would swap in and out. But I definitely think Called by the Grave would not be a bad addition to this deck, because that basically makes it so you get to negate twice on your turn when your opponent maybe happen to go first, because that's the only way I feel like this deck would suffer, is if your opponent has more than 2 negates. But again, most decks at that point, you can't play Yu-Gi-Oh! This is what this game has really come to, so just keep that in mind. Anyways, so onwards with the deck profile. And shoutouts once again to Spaghetti Rolls for hooking me up with the plays as well as the deck profile. So we have 3 copies of Zefra, and then 3 copies of course, Endymion, the Founding Sorcerer Supreme, which is basically what makes this deck so dang good. You have a negate before you go for your plays, and on top of that, well, it just works well in, of course, a deck where you're just placing a bunch of spells. Anyways, then we have 3 copies of Zefra, which is the card that will let you, again, add all your stuff. Keep in mind, this card has the effect to add any Yangzing or Zefra card, and with, of course, Zefra Providence, this will be a card that you want to search out before you go for your Divine Strike, because this one lets you add any Zefra card. So keep in mind, search out this card, so not only do you deck then, but you also get to place extra spell counters on your stuff. And then we have 2 copies of the White Wing Magician, which obviously is our tuner, which allows us to go into a lot of other plays in the deck, perhaps before the Needle Fiber plays. Then we have the Violet Poison Magician, and then we have the Satellar Knight. Some of these are just kind of filler cards, honestly, just for extra links and stepping stones to make other things, and just, again, another Pendulum card that happens to be Zefra. And then we have the Toon Magician, 2 copies of her, and 1 copy of the Ritual Beast Tamer, Zefra Windy, and then we have the Magister of Endymion. This card has its utility, but we're only playing 1 copy because it's more conditional. Then we have the Ritual Beast Tamer, Zefra Rampilica, and we have 3 copies of the Servant, which you play this card to search for this card, just special summon it from the deck, really good stuff. And then the Zidal Chef from Naga. Then we have Plague Spreader and, of course, Bulb for your Fiber. 3 copies of Spell Power Control. Unfortunately, you can only activate 1 of these per turn. It does let you get any Endymion card, which is really good for the archetype. And we have 2 copies of the Pendulum Call, 2 copies of Terraforming 3 copies of Zefra Providence, 1 copy of Endymion Lab, and then 3 copies of the Oracle of Zefra, 3 copies of Zefra Divine Strike, Magical Citadel of Endymion, Violent Poison Magician, and the 9 Pillars of Yangzing for the extra deck. Of course, we got Negate 1, we got Negate 2, we got Negate 3, we got Negate 4. We didn't even really show off Ignister, but it is possible to make. And then we have, of course, Shooting Razor Dragon, which will let you go with the Dawn Dragster. Worked very well. We didn't make Horus, but it was in here. Then we have Borlode, we have Blackluster, the Chaos Warrior, we got the Electrum, which you definitely need, and then Daybreaker. We never really summoned, but Needle Fiber we definitely did use. I would say these are the core cards that you want. We have basically 5 extra deck slots, so if you want to throw in perhaps even a Big Eye or whatever the case may be, you can definitely make it in this deck, and I still think Big Eye is a fantastic Yu-Gi-Oh card. Or just any rank 7s. Even like throwing in, let's say, Draco, Saryuja, you could probably open up the doors to a lot more combo plays. This is just obviously the introduction to it. And the deck is looking pretty nasty. But anyways, guys, let me know what you thought of the deck down below. But hopefully you enjoyed the vid. If you did, drop a like on it. And if you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button if you want to see more Yu-Gi-Oh combo videos and crazy content. If you guys got any cool replays, if you'd like to send them in, feel free to send them to AzneyesReplays@gmail.com. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace.